we have one more visual artist I'd like to invite up. It is Tisina, Ta-till-ium Parker. And Tisina is a California indigenous cis-femme filmmaker, textile designer, community cultural art activist. Tisina is the grandchild of Ralph and Julia F. Parker, child of Luis and Patricia Parker. Their people are Yosemite, Southern Sierra, Miwok, Kutsadika, Mona Lake Paiute from their grandfather's lineage, and Kashia Pomo from their grandmother's lineage. And Tisina was born and raised in their sacred tribal homeland of Yosemite, Mariposa. Born into a strong indigenous lineage, Tisina has practiced ceremony with their Southern Sierra Miwok Nation tribal community since birth and has worked as a cultural artist within the intertribal Bay Area Native community for over 15 years. Tisina descends from a powerful matriarchy of notable California basket makers, including their grandfather's grandmother, Lucy Tells, and their grandmother, Julia Parker. Tisina also holds a BA in Community Studies from UC Santa Cruz with an emphasis in art education and a BFA in Sustainable Fashion, Textile Design from California College of the Arts in San Francisco, where they graduated with honors as emerging talent. They are an active member of Southern Sierra Miwok Nation, frequently attending tribal meetings, ceremonies, and gatherings. In 2018, Tisina represented SSMN alongside tribal leaders in Washington, D.C. to petition for federal recognition, an ongoing 30-plus year battle with the U.S. government for tribal sovereignty. Tisina designs, creates, and collaborates with diverse communities and artists to illuminate issues of social and environmental justice and works deeply within regenerative design practices to create cultural work and traditional regalia that is in balance with indigenous ways of being. Tisina's life work is dedicated to community building, storytelling, and indigenous cultural regeneration through the mediums of film, traditional regalia making, textiles, and community cultural arts activism. Tisina's current work focuses on reskilling ancestral craft of regalia making practices and creating design which transcends the gender binary while honoring the sacred tradition and practices of our California tribal people. Let's give an applause for Tisina.
Wow, Crystal really went for it. You didn't even edit that down. Wow. Huyako, kanen oyahinti Tisina Ta-till-ium Parker. Enema Mariposa awani, kanemiwa awani kashai kukari. Yahui, 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 kemalas. That is an introduction. You heard my name many times. I'm Tisina, and I am Southern Sierra Miwok and Mona Lake Paiute and Kashia Pomo. Kashia from my grandmother's lineage and Paiute and Miwok from my grandfather's lineage. And traditional regalia making is my practice that I am showing at the back of the room. And this is all of the elements in the regalia here are handmade and hand collected. The hides are brain tan buckskins, which I brain tan myself, and the rabbit hides, which I've also tanned myself. All of the shells and feathers are collected. Nothing is ordered online or store bought. It took me over 2 years to collect everything that you see here. And there's part of the practice is sharing this with community. So a lot of my teachings involve holding tanning classes for community members and feather top knot classes, which is the piece up top. There's some sacred items in the bottom, which are shells that we use for regalia that were all collected from the ocean side here in Northern California. We use clamshell, and we also use abalone. Where in almost every single part of the regalia making, everything is handmade, including the string that is made to tie the beads on that are at the bottom of the skirt. And the only thing that is not handmade is there's a tiny bit of thread that's sewn those little tassels on. But in the practice that there's a continuation of gathering materials, so there will be sinew from a deer that is gathered and attached to those. So part of the practice is, in my culture and where I'm from, the gender binary is still very, very prolific. We have traditional practices where it's very difficult to exist outside of the gender binary in California traditional culture. In my tribal group, women are often told by men what to wear in ceremony, and anyone who transcends the gender binary doesn't really have a place in ceremony in my community. And that makes it really hard for people to honor and practice our traditions because in many instances, people just don't understand if you're not cis female or male, they really just don't understand. It's I live in a community, or I'm from a community where it's up in the foothills near Yosemite, and in many ways people are still living in like 1960, 1970. And a lot of the opportunity that I do with my teaching practice is to share the regalia making with queer people, and to open that opportunity up for people to make any of the elements that they wish to participate in. So whether it's the shell making, the feather making, the hide tanning, and to do it in a way that feels authentic to them. I first started tanning hides 10 years ago, and when I first started tanning hides, I was shamed in my community and told that that's men's work, and that I was disrespectful for doing that work. And that really hurt me because as we all want to only be embraced and loved within our own communities, I was ostracized for doing that practice. And I abandoned it for almost 10 years, and probably a little less than 10 years, like 7 years. And I really felt called that this was my work. As was said, I have a degree in fashion design. Fashion design is a very destructive practice for the environment. And I grew up watching my grandmother weave baskets and collecting plant materials from our natural world. And I knew that there was a process of creating that was beautiful, that was in alignment with the regenerative practices of the earth, of all the natural materials that we are surrounded by. And so I knew that that was the practice that I wanted to embrace. But without having someone to teach me how to tan hides, I decided to embark on that and teach myself. And in that practice, I was crossing the gender binary, and it became a little bit dangerous, as it is for people who, queer people, trans people in my community. And so there's an element on the back that is a feather cape, and in our tradition, usually people who are identified as male wear the feather cape. And in this representation, there's both the representation of the feminine and the masculine. And this is a work in progress. This takes many, many years to collect all the elements for this and to hand process everything. So it's probably not going to be complete for another few years. And it might not look that revolutionary to people in this room that don't know California indigenous practices, but challenging that gender binary can be really dangerous still within California indigenous communities. We really, really highly hold our traditions, but oftentimes our traditions also do not make space for people who are outside of the gender binary. So this is a work in progress. I had an opportunity this summer to teach 2 hide tanning classes with community in Northern California, Pomo community, and my community in Mariposa, and 1 feather top knot class. And part of that practice is sharing that practice with queer identified people in my community so that they can free themselves from the gender binary within our cultural context. So this is my work, and thank you so much to Bates for allowing this to happen. And this community has been something that has been really special to me since I moved to San Francisco and started to get involved with the Bates Two Spirit Powwow. in what I had seen in my tradition, there was no space for Two-Spirit people to dance or to be in ceremony. And so that the fact that the powwow exists is really beautiful to me. And I have many friends within this community that I hold dear to my heart and that inspire me all the time to just live my authentic self without fear. So, Yahweh, 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 Kemalas.